There's a specific kind of child that most families have. They're not the loudest, not always the oldest, but somehow, at some point, they became the one who held things together. They remembered what adults forgot. They stayed calm when everyone else fell apart. They checked on their siblings, kept secrets from one parent to protect the other, and learned very early that their feelings were the least important thing in the room. Nobody gave them that job. They just absorbed it. And if you're watching this, there's a reasonable chance that child was you. Here's what's strange about that. Most people who grew up this way don't think of it as something that happened to them. They think of it as just who they are. Responsible, reliable, the one people call when things go wrong. It feels like a personality trait, a strength even, and in some ways it is. But there's something underneath it that psychology has been quietly documenting for decades, something that explains why the most capable person in the room often feels the most exhausted, why the one who holds everyone else together sometimes feels like they're barely holding themselves, and why no matter how much they accomplish, it never quite feels like enough. Psychologists call it parentification. Not the dramatic kind you read about in extreme cases, the quiet kind, the everyday kind that happens in millions of ordinary homes where parents were simply too overwhelmed, too absent, too emotionally unavailable, or sometimes just too human to carry everything themselves. So the weight shifted, slowly, without anyone deciding it would. Dr. Gregory Jerkovitz, who spent years researching this at Georgia State University, identified two types: instrumental parentification, or the child takes on physical responsibilities, cooking, cleaning, managing younger siblings, and emotional parentification, where the child becomes the emotional support system, the one a parent vents to, the one who manages the emotional temperature of the entire household. The second type, he found, leaves deeper marks, because a child managing dishes is still just a child doing chores, but a child managing their parents' anxiety, their parents' loneliness, their parents' grief, that child is doing something the human brain isn't built to do at that age. They're parenting their parent, and they get very, very good at reading rooms. Here's what that actually looks like grown up. You walk into a room, and within seconds, you've already scanned it. Who's tense, who's about to say the wrong thing, where the conflict is quietly building. You don't do this consciously. Your nervous system does it for you, because it learned to do it when getting it wrong had real consequences. You're the person friends call at 2 a.m., not because you advertised that service, but because somewhere along the way, people learned you wouldn't fall apart on them. You'd listen, you'd help. You'd figure something out. You're also probably terrible at asking for help yourself, not because you're proud, but because needing something from someone else feels genuinely uncomfortable in a way that's hard to explain. Like standing in a room where all the furniture is pushed against one wall. Something about it just feels off. And here's the part nobody talks about. You're often angry. Not loudly, not in ways people see, but somewhere underneath all that competence and reliability, there's a very tired person who has been showing up for everyone else for so long that they've genuinely lost track of what showing up for themselves would even look like. Now here's where it gets more complicated, and I think this part matters. Not every responsible child grew up in a painful home. Some of them grew up in loving homes where parents were simply stretched too thin, working two jobs, dealing with illness, navigating their own trauma as best they could. And those children don't walk around feeling victimized. They walk around feeling vaguely guilty for even naming what happened. Because how do you explain to someone that you had a good childhood and still came out of it carrying something heavy? The answer is that love and burden aren't opposites. You can be loved completely and still be handed more than a child should carry. Both things are true at the same time. What research in attachment theory consistently shows is that children need to feel dependent to develop properly. They need to know that the adults are handling the adult things, that their only job is to be a kid. When that security gets disrupted, even gently, even with good intentions, the child's nervous system adapts. It grows up faster than it should. It becomes alert, capable, and quietly convinced that love is something you earn by being useful. That last part is the one worth sitting with. Love is something you earn by being useful, not a belief anyone handed you directly, but a conclusion your brain drew from thousands of small moments. The look on a parent's face when you handled something well, the relief in the room when you kept it together, the way your value in the family seemed connected to your function in it. So you kept functioning, beautifully, exhaustingly, and somewhere along the way, rest started to feel like failure. Doing nothing started to feel dangerous, and letting someone else handle something, really handle it without your input or supervision, became almost physically uncomfortable. Because the part of you that learned to earn love through competence doesn't fully believe the love stays if the competence stops. That's not a character flaw. That's a nervous system doing exactly what it was trained to do. Here's what I want to say directly to you if this is landing. The qualities you developed because of this, the attentiveness, the emotional intelligence, the ability to stay calm when everything around you is breaking, those are real. They matter. The world genuinely needs people who can hold things together. But you did not come into this world to be useful to everyone except yourself. The version of you that learned to be responsible out of necessity is not the only version of you available. There's another one underneath it, one that doesn't have to earn its place, one that's allowed to need things, to say, I can't right now, to let someone else carry something, not because you can't, but because it isn't yours to carry. That version isn't lost. It's just been waiting quietly for a long time. And the first step toward finding it isn't a grand gesture. It's something much smaller than that. It's noticing the next time someone asks something of you and checking whether you actually want to give it. Not whether you can, not whether you should, whether you want to. That pause, that tiny internal question, that's where it starts. If you've spent most of your life being the one who holds things together, you already know how to show up for other people. The harder thing, the thing most people in this position have never actually practiced, is showing up for yourself with the same patience you've given everyone else. That's not selfish, that's just overdue. If this video found the right person today, subscribe, because this channel exists for exactly this kind of conversation. And if you want something more structured, there's a link in the description built specifically for people who understand everything I just said and still find themselves stuck in the same patterns. It's designed around small daily steps, not more information to think about, because you've thought about it enough. It's time to actually move.